Welcome in to an urgency podcast from the Flagship. I am Chip Brown of horns247.com, joined as always by our managing editor, our fearless leader, the one and only Taylor Estes. And Taylor, we have heard from Texas quarterbacks Hudson Card and drumroll Quinn Ewers.
Yep, the man, the myth, and the mullet. We got to talk to them for the first time today. This is Thursday. That is why we are coming to you early this week with another show here on the Flagship podcast, because, anytime that the quarterbacks, especially at Texas, a quarterback battle going on at Texas, all eyes are on it. And this one is probably one of the most significant ones, at least in the past decade, I would say for sure. And let's get right to it, Chip. I mean, what was your biggest kind of initial takeaway after hearing both from Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers today?
Man, it's a good thing these guys can play some football because they are boring when it comes to the media game. I mean, not boring, just cool. Men of few words.
Yes.
They're not exactly going to, cut open their veins and pour out their guts, let you know every little thing that they're thinking. They are, how pitchers are on a pitch count. They seem to be on a word count.
Yes.
Let me see how I can answer this in as few words or I'm just kidding. But listen, it doesn't matter what they say. It's what they do. It's who they are as people. And by all accounts, as we've been reporting, these guys are playing well. They're coming off a good scrimmage on Saturday. Kind of the midpoint of spring football. As we've reported here, Quinn Ewers put on a show, according to sources, and 3 touchdown passes, some crazy arm angle completions, and Hudson Card has probably been the most consistent of the quarterbacks, and so I think interesting just to get Hudson Card out there. He went first. To hear him say that he knows he's got to work on his pocket presence, but it's kind of hard to do unless you're in live reps. So now's the time for him to work on that and then being more of a vocal leader. And then Quinn Ewers came in and said, feels like things are going well. He's friends with Hudson Card. They get along, and he's just trying to progress in the offense each day and doesn't really want to talk about why he decommitted from Texas the first time, why he went to Ohio State before finally ending up back at Texas. He used one of Steve Sarkisian's little anecdotes about that's why the rearview mirror is so small and the windshield is so big, Taylor.
Yeah, I thought that was a really good quote. And, he definitely, you could tell he did not want to answer that question. He didn't want to answer any questions about any deals, NIL deals that he's gotten, so far at Texas. I think one thing, Chip, that stood out a little bit about Quinn Ewers, I almost feel like he's has such a crazy story. I mean, the spotlight has been on this kid for years now, and he's only a redshirt freshman. Mind you, he enrolled early, so technically he would be age-wise a true freshman, but he's had the spotlight just shining down on him. And I think a lot of times that would really be tough to handle. And you kind of expect more of like a pompous type of guy just because of the outside, attention that he gets. And he was asked about that. And I want to hear, kind of your thoughts on this, but he was asked about, how he's kind of handled the hype that's followed him. And he really was very just kind of like, I don't focus on it. And it seemed real. He gave the answer you probably expected people to give, but this seems like a real answer, not something that he has just been taught up to say. And, I think that the fact that he wouldn't talk about NIL deals and he didn't really open up much about anything except for what's been going on the field, I think that shows that, a lot of times the hoopla that's surrounding him is more outside focused more than anything else, and not something that he's truly embracing or anything along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, if you I'm looking at his Twitter right now, and he's retweeting tweets of his teammates.
Mm.
Here's a tweet focusing on Xavier Worthy from 4 days ago. He's got some Kansas City Royals tweets he's retweeting, and okay, there's one of him with his beautiful hair flowing in the wind from April 5th. Another beautiful day for football
Yeah.
at Quinn Ewers. But yeah, he was even asked about the mullet, and then he said it's just hair after all.
Yeah.
Which some balding members of the press corps said, "Quit bragging." But yeah, I mean, look, Jordan Whittington described Quinn Ewers as a surfer, just
Mhm.
a cool dude. Said he kind of reminds me of my dad, which I guess means Jordan Whittington's dad is a pretty cool dude. But I mean, when you hear that word surfer, what pops into your mind, Taylor?
I mean, well, I'm from Southern California, so that's where I was born and raised, and
That's what I'm asking you.
yeah, I think a lot of times when you hear that, it's more of just a laid back, go with the flow type of mentality. I kind of think of the movie Remember the Titans. You know, what they call the quarterback sunshine, I think it was.
Yep.
It kind of is similar to that. But yeah, when you hear the word surfer, you don't really think of somebody that honestly has much responsibility even or would be willing to take responsibility. All they care about is, being in the water. And maybe that's kind of the flip side with Quinn Ewers. He has that kind of laid back mentality, and all he cares about is football. I kind of take it that way personally.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to team sources who say he's early. He's 15 minutes early to everything,
Mhm.
meetings, practice, if not earlier. So he's diligent. He's doing the right things, and we know from all of our conversations with teammates that he bonds well. He's fit in well. Before he ever set foot on a spring practice field, he was photographed with the receiver group at Topgolf. I thought that was interesting because he was the only non-receiver with the receivers at Topgolf, and it was a receiver function. So they clearly wanted him there.
Mhm.
And that was early on. And so, I think he's fit in well. He's bonded well with the locker room. That was a concern because all the talk about the NIL deals and is this guy selfish and what's going on? No. In fact, I've kind of heard the opposite that, any NIL money he got to go to Ohio State, he, may have given it to his family. So he's, I think he's a guy you cheer for. He doesn't really care what you think.
Mhm.
He's just going to do his thing. And you need that when you're the Texas quarterback. If you have rabbit ears, if you have antenna ears, it's not going to be good. And so I thought the most interesting thing, Taylor, today was when I asked him about the double hernia surgery.
Right.
That was when he opened up the most
Right.
and talked about how difficult it was, how much of a challenge it was to come back from that injury, but that he felt like he needed to do that for his team. And of course, he ends up playing with pain, but leading his team to the state championship probably a year early. If you talk to South Lake Carroll Dragon fans, they'll say, "Oh man, I wish we could have gotten him back for that last year because that was the year he got us there a year early in 2020." But that he did. He fought his way back. We talked to Riley Dodge, the head coach at South Lake Carroll, and Riley talked about how difficult that surgery was. It was done by the sports hernia um, expert doctor in Philadelphia, and and thankfully that's all worked out well because of course Jordan Whittington had sports hernia issues, and his first surgery was done before he got to Texas. It didn't go well, and then his second surgery was done by the same Philadelphia sports hernia uh, doctor expert, and it's gone well. But I thought that was when he opened up the most, Taylor.
It was, yeah, and, going back to, what Riley Dodge told us on the Flagship podcast think that was in March that we got him on, he talked about how most guys would have just probably hung it up, when he had to get that midseason double hernia surgery. And he's like, and honestly, you wouldn't really blame him because that was a big deal. It was a substantial surgery. It kept him out for a number of weeks. But, Riley Dodge was the first one to say that Quinn fought and fought, and he probably wasn't even fully healthy or cleared really to play. But Quinn, there was no stopping him. He was going to do that for his team. And, I think one of the, hearing him say it was tough. He goes, that was tough for me, but I put a lot of work into it and I learned a lot about my own body. And I take my body a lot more serious than I did. I feel like that almost helped me just because now I actually take care of my body. I go to treatment and all of this stuff. But yeah, it was tough for sure because I wasn't fully healed, but I felt like I had to just do it for the team. I'm glad I did because of the run we made. And that's a selfless guy, and that's where this is a unique situation because I think most people would probably, most people on the outside would probably expect him to be a selfish guy, not a selfless guy. And he really is. He's almost this whole like mythological type of character type of thing, like that a creature or something that has kind of followed him just because of the hype and everything. I think it's almost like that he's more of that way because he's not into the hype and he's not into being, like the guy that walks in and
Celebrity quarterback,
exactly.
Skip
Yeah,
Barsai's once
it's like
famously
it's
said.
almost more shocking to me. Like that's more of the myth, like the mythological creature that Quinn Ewers is, it's more than the fact that he isn't like that guy that is taking in the celebrity and basking in it. He really is just kind of wants to play football and wants to help out his teams. And that's what you want in a quarterback. You really want that type of mentality. And this is the fact that Texas has him, Chip, I can't say it anymore, but this is turning out to be even bigger than I think a lot of people expected.
Yeah, I mean, I asked him about this scrimmage last Saturday where he, lit it up, 3 touchdown passes, the crazy arm angle throws. And he said, "Yep, my receivers were making plays and we were out there doing our thing. No big deal." Basically, is what he was saying. And and so this is a different approach than what we've seen from Sam Ellinger, even Casey Thompson, who was very, um, would open up and talk about all the things that he's seeing, facing, contemplating as the quarterback at Texas. And then when you combine him with Hudson Card, who's, everyone was asking about the hype of Quinn Ewers, and he said, "I'm just focused on me and what I can control." And um, he's a man of few words. And although we have heard that Hudson Card has been more vocal, more demonstrative this spring than he's been at any point in his time at Texas, and that's been a point of emphasis from Steve Sarkisian. So one thing I think is interesting, Taylor, and I wrote about this in the Insider this week, is that Malik Murphy, the 6'5" early enrollee freshman who's not even cleared to go through full practices. He's just out there throwing in warmups because of an ankle injury and surgery that he had as a result of an injury he suffered in his high school state championship game. He's the one with all the personality.
Yeah.
He's the one with the charisma. And one team source said he walks into the locker room and he's like the mayor. That he's got the big presence, not just physically at 6'5", but from a personality standpoint. So it's interesting because personalities come in all different shapes at the quarterback position. You got guys who will talk your ears off, and then you got guys like Aaron Rodgers who are just like, relax, RELAX, relax. So some interesting personalities in the quarterback room right now.
There definitely are for sure. And I think that Hudson Card and Quinn Ewers kind of have a little bit more of that similar personality as we've talked about, not they're men of few words. One thing Steve Sarkisian talked about this on Tuesday when we spoke with him, but he said that he showed his quarterbacks clips of Matt Ryan getting after some of the wide receivers at the Falcons, including Julio Jones. And Quinn Ewers was asked about, like, what did he take away from that, and what message do you think that Sark was trying to send? And he said that he was trying to lit a fire under them. That's how Quinn Ewers took it. And he said, when he showed us that Matt Ryan still yells at Julio Jones after all the time they've spent together, I think he's trying to show us that it's okay for us to be vocal, because the receivers don't care if you yell at them at the end of the day. I feel like they almost want that. And I think Sark probably, I would say, in just with how quiet and they both of these guys are, I think he's going to be having to do a lot of those things, those type of teaching lessons. And it seems like, obviously Quinn Ewers picked up on exactly what Sark was trying to express when, in his what he thought, Sark's message was and why he was showing it to them. But, that's going to be probably a little bit of an uphill battle for Sark if he's looking for those fiery type of quarterbacks, the day in and day out, one's willing to get in your face type of guys. I would say that's probably where he has a lot of work to do right now, Chip.
Yeah, and it's interesting because Bryce Young, the quarterback at Alabama, gained a reputation as a guy who was completely unflappable.
Mm-hmm.
Never showed highs, lows, just always, unflappable.
Yeah.
And Bryce Young did just fine last year
Mm-hmm.
at Alabama. So now he was surrounded by tons of NFL talent and tons of leaders and future first round draft picks. So Texas in a little different position than we've talked about. Okay, yes, Quinn Ewers has the same recruiting ranking, number one in his entire class as Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence went to Clemson and won a national championship. Trevor Lawrence was surrounded by NFL players.
Right.
We can tick them all off. They're all in the NFL right now. And Texas is not in that situation at all. They're trying to find offensive linemen, for crying out loud, who can practice and with some consistency.
Yeah.
And that search continues. So it's a different level. It should be a different level of expectation for Quinn Ewers. But we've also talked about Colt McCoy in 2008 and 2009 without an offensive line full of future NFL draft picks. Far from it. Colt McCoy made play after play by rolling the pocket, bootlegs, waggles, running, finding Jordan Shipley and Quan Cosby in 2008, but mostly Jordan Shipley in 2009, and took his team all the way to the national championship. So there are different ways to get it done. But of course, at that point, Colt McCoy was, a fifth year senior. So it's going to be fun to watch these guys develop. And we don't know yet what we're looking at. We won't know until fall camp. But as I said this week in the Morning Brew on Monday about the great rave reviews that Ewers got for his performance in Saturday scrimmage, it's a good first step. You want to hear that those types of performances are happening, that they're possible, that they're within his repertoire. Because apparently the next day, Tuesday, he went out and there were some turnovers. So it's going to be up and down, but good first step that when the lights came on and it was a scrimmage in DKR, he lit it up. And now we'll see. That's just with what he's learned of the offensive installation up to this point. Hudson Card has a lot more of that offense already in his, computer hard drive. So we'll see how it, starts to shake out when they're getting hit, and that probably won't happen until September.
Yeah, and Quinn Ewers did mention that he has not taken a full hit probably since high school. So that's going to be, Steve Sarkisian's talked about that though. Sometimes you got to get hit in order to get up and be like, okay, I can get up and I can handle this type of thing. So that's going to be something that won't happen until the season. But I think Quinn Ewers and Hudson Card too. Hudson Card played through that high ankle sprain in that West Virginia game. And he was talked about that a little bit today, not in depth or anything, but he said, it was tough, but he got to do what he got to do to try to help out the team. And so I think Texas has two tough quarterbacks, ones that are willing to play through injury, to play if they're not fully cleared. And, ultimately, two talented passers, too. I mean, with Steve Sarkisian saying that both quarterbacks completed 70% of their passes in the scrimmage. And, this wasn't just 15 throws that they made, it was like 60s. And so that in itself is a good sign. That's a huge improvement compared to what we were hearing, not just at this time last year in spring football, Chip, but also last season. I mean, I think Casey Thompson finished the season with, I think it's 63% completions, and Card was a little bit lower than that. So, and Sark wants a guy that can complete around 70%. So, good first steps, as you mentioned. Still a lot of ways to go, though.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting when Hudson Card was asked about Quinn Ewers' talent. He said he can make all the throws, and so can I.
Yeah.
So it's look, you got to have guys with confidence and swagger, and guys who can go through the ups and downs and the adversity of a game and bounce back and lead their team even after making some mistakes. And that's what we'll find out once the season starts. And that's what Mac Brown, always said. You don't know what kind of leadership you have from year to year until you hit that first adversity of the season with each team.
Hmm.
And so that's when we'll find out if all the bonding and more Ojimo sounding off, which I said in the Insider, I had a team source say it was sort of the verbal equivalent of a practice scuffle.
Hmm.
Guys got mad that Morrow called out other guys, and especially the guys who got called out, and Sarkisian had to call the team together and talk about what happened, and it the source said it may have lit some fires where some fires needed to be lit. So sometimes those things kind of bring everyone to the table to hash it out, and there were guys who were upset that Moro Ojimo was calling guys out when he hasn't always been running first team this spring. He's been behind Alfred Collins, and so Moro Ojimo's probably going to have to sharpen up his game as well. And it's better that all that stuff is happening now
Yeah.
in the spring than in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
And
And a player
when,
recording Bo Davis on the bus after a loss
right.
and posting it on
Oh boy.
social media.
Oh boy. Remember that week?
Oh, yeah.
Monkey Gate, and then Bo Davis. I mean, good heavens. Thank goodness. This offseason has been one, piece of good news after another. And a big part of that was Quinn Ewers' decision to transfer from Ohio State to Texas, and so far so good, Taylor, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. And any final, thoughts on what either Quinn Ewers or Hudson Card had to say, Chip?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when they say, Hudson Card said we're friends. I said, okay, you're friends. What does that mean? Like, do you all hang out after football? And he's like, no, we talked about bowling, playing golf, that kind of thing. Okay. I do think these guys get along. I think from what I've heard, the quarterback room is a bright and lively place. It's not one guy trying to undermine the other guy, or, get in his head, or, they're working together as a group. And so, I think Sarkisian has a good hold on that. And then, now it's just a matter of how much information can these guys process, and especially when they're under pressure, and not make the big mistake, because that has been a problem in this spring. I mean, it's growing pains for Quinn Ewers. He's made some outlandishly great plays, and he's made some are you kidding me interceptions, and now's the time to do those things so that by the time you get to August, September, those things aren't happening anymore.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, you wanna go through the ups and downs in the off season, and Texas has to put it together early because they have a tough non-conference schedule. I mean, I think every game's a home game, right? They're
Yep.
non-conference. Yeah, so that helps for sure.
Louisiana Monroe,
Yeah,
Alabama,
Alabama, then UTSA.
UTSA.
I mean, that's not that's no cupcake of a schedule in any way, shape, or form. So, the sooner that Texas can kind of iron out those wrinkles, the better, because they're going to need to be really on point and sharp from week one of the season this in 2022.
Yeah. All right. There we have it. The quarterbacks at Texas have spoken. We probably won't hear from them again until, well, maybe after the spring game.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
we can, hope. But again, don't expect any fireworks from these guys. It's pretty ho hum, pretty low key.
It is.
That's okay. It's
Right.
okay. Let your actions do your talking, as Clint Eastwood always said. All right. Thanks everybody for jumping on this emergency urgency podcast about the Texas quarterbacks taking to the microphone here in spring football. For Taylor Estes, I am Chip Brown. We'll see you over at horns247.com. Until the next time, stay safe and keep the faith.